Well, election years are always interesting when it comes to economic forecasts, especially those forecasts made by the candidates. It's good to remember we live in partisan times, and when you see something on social media or even some cable networks that's too dire or even overly rosy, there's probably a hidden agenda behind it. That's why I think you'll find my next guest fairly enlightening. Lowell Catlett is a respected economist and a noted futurist who believes our country's economy is much stronger than we give it credit for. And I was able to sit down with him shortly before he spoke at Oklahoma State University. Well, Dr. Catlett, we're in this time that we seem to hit every few years, and it's election season, and there's a lot of political rhetoric out there. And depending upon who you listen to, you know, our economy is headed for the dumpster, or it's booming. And I know there's some middle ground in there between. What do you say?
It's the best time ever in terms of the economic activity that goes on. We're a strong $18+ trillion economy. Okay, we started in 1970. We became the world's first $1 trillion economy. Okay, so we've grown 18 times since 1970. China, which has been the fastest growing economy for the last decade, grew 19 times. So they grew, but we're still as we were in 1970, we're still 1/4 of the world's economy. But the world is growing, and they got more money. That's the main thing. So they want air conditioning. They want more meat in their diet. Nobody can provide that meat better than we can. Nobody can provide those air conditioners. They want safer products, cleaner air. So we've got a staggering world wealth. And the United States, published every month by the Federal Reserve, calculates the net worth of Americans. The last one that was done 2 weeks ago set the net worth of our 121 million households at $87 trillion. So can an $87 trillion economy handle a debt load of roughly the same amount as our GDP, 18 trillion? Well, in the business world, that's a pretty good debt to equity ratio. So overall, we're a growing economy. Overall, we've never had more net worth, Bob. Never in history. Which means, guess what? You want maybe private school for your children, where the previous generation went to public school. Maybe you want a bigger house. Maybe you want 2 houses now. You know, it's driving a whole mechanism of new products. 1970, we had 0 craft breweries in America. Now we have 4,000. You don't want a beer anymore. You want a craft beer that's made locally. And that can only be sustained by wealth. And it's a phenomenal wealth that's driving so many different economic entities and segments of the economy. Staggers the imagination, but it's there. Okay, it's good, okay, and strong.
And while a rising tide does raise all ships, or should we have worries about income inequality here in this country?
Well, there's no question but what we're approaching where we had the greatest income inequality, where the 1% controlled 21% of the wealth, and that was in 1929. And we're at 19% right now, okay? So 1%, the 1%ers as we call them, control 19%, or have 19% of the wealth. The real question is for us other 99%, is that 81% left giving us a good life? If we go back to 1929, few homes had running water, few homes had a telephone, few homes had a car. Life was pretty tough, and the average life expectancy was 46. Now it's almost 80. The average person that lives in poverty has more dishwashers, washing machines, color television sets, every appliance that makes your life better than the average American had 1 generation ago. So, yeah, there's inequality, but the real question is, what does the other 99% have? And they have the best life they've ever had in history.
Let's talk a little bit about workforce. There's a concern here in the state, and I know around the nation, about a skills gap, that we have more jobs in certain areas that people are not qualified for. And I'm not talking about PhD level degrees. I'm talking about certain specific skills. Is that a concern as our economy matures and as the workforce matures?
It's a concern of mine because I've been an educator my whole life, and I agree 100%. That it's one of those what we call structural changes that we're just trying to catch up on. The good thing is that we've got technologies now called augmented reality that were used for years by certain industries. For example, a pilot now is trained and gets lots of hours in a simulator because the simulators are so good. And then we let them go to the very expensive equipment. So now we've got, and the new science of education says that about 100 hours in a simulated environment gives you a skill set to operate and do things that would have required 1,000 hours before. So now you've got the ability to learn faster, the mistakes are less costly. So we've got a good model that basically says, yeah, we're short of plumbers right now, we really are. But there's a technology, instead of 5 years of an apprenticeship with a plumber, we got a technology that can get you rapidly up to speed to be a helper that may shorten that to 2 years, okay? So I'm very hopeful about it, but man, we're in a structural, and the big one, as we all know, is we've got, and have had for 20 years, almost 60% of the students now going to college are female. We've got a real underemployment of males because, and I think it's wonderful for females. They're now the majority in veterinary schools, majority in medical schools, majority in law school, majority in CPAs, 38% in engineering. They're growing. But at the same time, men are more interested in kind of hands-on. So they're less inclined to go in the traditional routes and more inclined to go into what we would call the trade associations. Well, with new augmented reality, we got a way to rapidly get them a skill set that we never had before, if we can get it done.
So it sounds like the next big thing is not only technology, but how we relate to that technology.
Totally, totally. It's always been the case. It's always been the case, okay? And technologies don't necessarily always come without a dark side. None of us is going to give up the automobile, but 32,000 people die on the roads every year, okay? But that's why we're working toward, guess what? It used to be 56,000 20 years ago. More people died on the highways from automobile accidents than died in the whole Vietnam War in a single year. So it pushed us to passive restraints, airbags, and the next layer is, guess what? Totally driven car. I mean, boy, Tulsa wants it. General Motors says it's #1 priority. 3,800 miles without a single accident, coast to coast, totally automatically driven General Motors car last year.
Certainly can make the commute a little bit different.
It will. And you might want to have a beer while you go.
I never thought of that.
So it's one of those things that it has downside, but because that downside was so severe, guess what? We worked on other technologies to make it less severe. And you're seeing traffic deaths gradually decline because it was a technology that we're not going to give up, and we'll put up with it simply because it adds so much value in other ways.
Yeah, and that really does bring me to one of our, if not our major economy here in the state, and that is energy. What could driverless cars, whether they're powered by electricity or nitrogen cell, I mean, what could that mean for the energy industry?
Well, it means that the energy industry, to me, is, to do all the things we talked about requires energy in phenomenal magnitudes, okay? And it has to be mobile and it has to be usable. And we're going to look at different ways of doing that. It may be that we'll move more toward electric vehicles, but you still have to charge those things. So we may charge them by very efficient solar cells, we may charge them by wind, we may charge them by stripping out petroleum into other component parts and using it to create little small fuel cells. I don't know. But energy, the demand for it, is going to explode, already is. Okay? It's just going to be in multifacets. And as we learn more about each one, we'll do it. And we sometimes discard some. We've discarded a lot of coal plants to try to meet emission standards. But Sac Power in Saskatchewan has a coal-powered plant that basically meets the same stringent requirements we have in the U.S. that can only be met with natural gas. And they're doing it with coal. So they're using technologies in a way that nobody thought possible. So if you're creative enough, you can do it.
You know, we often refer to universities as institutions of higher learning, and just that institution word means that it doesn't change that often. Are we about to see a major revolution in education?
We're already in the midst of it, because the generation that grew up with this basically says, I'm used to this size screen. I'm not. I want a big screen. But they're used to this screen. They're used to reading on it now. They're used to playing games on it. They're used to augmented reality. They're used to it. And they're used to being connected. So are they pushing us? You bet they are. So is the traditional classroom gone? No, because some of the things we learn have to be about humans. They have to be about body language, and some of those things, we have to be around humans.
Now, in the coming weeks, we'll be bringing you more of my conversation with Dr. Catlett as we look at the future of both food and medicine.